What if I told you your U.S. birth certificate is about to become a suspicious document? And that is because this administration is attacking the 14th Amendment and looking to obliterate birthright citizenship.
Welcome to Want More with Dr. Moore, the criminologist of the Bay. Your host, Dr. Talia Moore, is a college professor who created this space to discuss and facilitate transformation in learning. Each week, we'll bring you dynamic leaders and change makers and discuss systems, practices, policies, and people that intersect and impact justice as we know it. And now your host, Dr. Talia Moore.
As a criminologist with over a decade of law enforcement and community corrections experience, as well as a college professor and forensic expert, this really resonates with me, and this material really hits home. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the historical context, legal interpretation, and contemporary debates related to birthright citizenship. My name is Dr. Talia Moore, and I'm your host. So let's look at the 14th Amendment, and I'll read the most prominent clause of it to you. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. This clause establishes birthright citizenship as an American citizen and for anyone born or naturalized here. However, the origins of the 14th Amendment really are blood-stained and riddled with some of the most horrific atrocities of this country. The 14th Amendment really originates around ensuring that enslaved African Americans, after slavery ended, were granted citizenship into the United States. And so from that initial act, the 14th Amendment really has been the pathway for other minorities and other people entering into the country on the path towards citizenship. And then when we look at people who have been born here or naturalized citizens, the 14th Amendment also supports and recognizes them as well. Now they're looking to weaponize the 14th Amendment and really infuse some level of intensified trauma into the interpretation of the words. So the phrase subject to jurisdiction is now actually being questioned. And this is rather unfortunate for anybody who may be impacted by it. But really, where were you born? Here in the United States, and under what circumstances were you born, are really some of the questions that are being asked as we look at jurisdiction and birthright citizenship. Now, as we discuss birthright citizenship and really the administration's response in totality to what is going on, there are some very clear parallels between our undocumented community members now and those of the enslaved people's experiences over 100 years ago here in this country. Just kind of thinking about having to provide papers and proof, like your slave papers or your freedom papers, really is on the same continuum when you have people who are being asked if they can prove or provide documentation of their citizenship, a birth certificate, a driver's license, right? Really, really closely related. And when you see ICE agents show up at spaces and people are fleeing for their lives and for their protections, right? Again, the same parallels that we know that the enslaved surely encountered as they are being sought after by the slave patrols. And so it's rather unfortunate that our law enforcement, even though their origins are in slave patrols, have now circled all the way back to be used in those same detrimental ways to wreak havoc on people and to cause a level of unjustified strife to certain communities. It's just disgusting. It's interesting how we use certain phrases that, while in and of themselves are not blatantly racist, however, in the context of the conversation, you can definitely see some of these phrases are being used in those ways. So if we go back to 1920s where we first hear the word alien as we're talking about human beings who were born on this planet, It's kind of crazy that that is also the word that we are throwing out as we're talking about someone who may not have been born here. Some other words that we hear or phrases that we have heard in regards to birthright citizenship is talking about babies and calling kids born here anchor babies, as if that's supposed to be something positive or a great descriptor of the circumstances that they were born under, and it's not. Again, discussing. And then lastly, just kind of looking at this entire bureaucracy of ICE and the agents that are going out basically kidnapping people, right? Taking them out of their spaces. This is not a policy. This is bureaucratic violence, and it needs to come to an end. So, how do we fight back? How do we armor ourselves and protect our loved ones from having to face the possibilities of deportation, human extraction, and really just not having our birthright citizenship rights honored? Well, one of the ways is really just staying ready so you don't have to get ready. What does this mean? This means having an emergency kit, a go bag, and also having all of your documentation that is needed: birth certificates, IDs, whatever identifiers that you have here, tax records that you've been paying taxes or that you live in certain places, like having that documentation available, possibly scanning that because you may not have your papers ready and available when called to task. Another way that we can be responsive to these attacks is really the community and ensuring that we have each other's back, right? This community shield. One thing that we see frequently, and I hope that it continues, is people are recording what is going on. Right. So the same way we would pull out a camera for a Karen, pull out a camera for the ICE agents that are taking people away as well. And then lastly, as I'm talking about this, be willing to fight the good fight. And so this is not just drawing arms or throwing hands, but really, how do we fight the bureaucracy that exists, right? How do we challenge the policies? How do we call upon our lawmakers and our Congress and all of our representatives in these various spaces to actually stand up and represent our true interests? The erosion of birthright citizenship in the United States has profound repercussions. Right, we're seeing it on a whole different level, and the impact of trauma is immense. So loss of identity and belonging, can you imagine what it's like to grow up here your entire life and then all of a sudden be told that you are not here, you're supposed to go back somewhere else to be determined, into who and to what circumstances? What does that look like for a child or an adult who's been here their entire life for the most part and they don't have another home to go back to? Another trauma that has developed as a result of this challenge is really the legal uncertainty and anxiety. What does it look like to go to court to petition for legal immigration status, only to walk out the court to be detained by ICE as you're going through the procedure and the steps in the exact same way that it has been prescribed to you, told to do, and you're doing it lawfully, and yet the response is not what you sought out? Can you imagine what that anxiety, that feeling looks like or feels like to be out here in society and you never know if somebody is going to turn around and ask you for papers? Another impact that we're seeing here is really the disruption of stability. You don't know if work is safe, we don't know if school is safe, we don't know if the doctor is safe. All of these different situations, right? So not only anxiety provoking, but also just a total disruption into the normal flow of what someone's life had previously been before. Another challenge that people encounter is, right, family separation and the trauma that results from that. Having your parent or grandmother, your tia, your cousin, somebody removed from the family unit, taken to, again, where you do not know and you don't know how to go about finding them or getting them back. And then the Next impact that I want to talk about really, and this is our collective shared experience, but community socialization fragmentation. So, how do we exist when people who were contributing members of a community are picked out and removed? What does that look like? What does that look like to the natural flow of work duties and obligations, to the school impacts, to going to the grocery store? Or, I mean, just small, simple things like that, right? And what does it feel like to have that uncertainty continue to exist around us and not to know if the next boot is going to drop and you too may be subjected to being deported and arrested? So, this is a call to action. This is a call for us all to be aware. This is a call for us to fight back. This is a call really for us to stand on business and ensure that our 14th Amendment and all of our amendment rights are protected. Because remember, if one person is subjected to any of the mistreatment, then all of us potentially can be subjected to this level of mistreatment. So I hope you found this information informative. And if so, please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to comment, and I'll comment back. And for those of you who may be struggling to address this in your respective workplaces, be sure to follow me and send me a message on my website. We can definitely connect, and I can help you navigate this process. Until next time, educate, empower, and enact the changes you want to see. Want more.
Want more with Dr. Moore, the criminologist of the Bay? Follow us on Facebook at Want More, Instagram at Want More Dr. Moore, and on TikTok at Want More with Dr. Moore for more information. Be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, educate, empower, and enact the changes you want to see. Want more?